Nope, this is it. This is the ideal home defense gun. Actually, no, it's this one, totally this one. This is the way to go. On second thought, actually, no, it's totally gonna be this one. This is the ideal home defense. Actually, you know what they all have in common? The fact that they have this little guy on it, a silencer on your home defense gun. Is that a good idea? Let's talk about it. Welcome back, everybody. Clint here today with Classic Firearms, coming at you from the bunker, here to talk about exactly what I mentioned in the intro: silencers on your home defense gun. Is it a good idea? And of course, we all know this is a topic of debate for quite some time, especially whenever John Lovell, Warrior Poet Society, put out his video where he was kind of arguing against using silencers and why he chooses not to use silencers for his home defense guns. And I'm here to kind of say, yeah, I see where you're coming from, John, but also, just like Mr. Guns and Gear, I politely disagree. So let's just go ahead and hop into it. But I also want to talk about what's good for you. Of course, this is going to be something that you have to determine, and whether or not you want to use an NFA item, a National Firearms Act item, for a home defense setup. And we'll talk about why here in just a few moments. But ultimately, a suppressor, silencer, can, whatever you choose to call it, it all does quite simply two things: suppresses the sound and also suppresses the flash that you get whenever you discharge a firearm. And if you are discharging a firearm in a home defense situation, you're most likely discharging that firearm within your house, your apartment, whatever building you might be in, which is close quarters. If you've ever been to an indoor gun range, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about whenever I'm saying you've shot an unsuppressed firearm in close quarters, or multiple people in close quarters. It's very concussive. It can be disorienting. It can also be very intimidating for newer people to go to the range and not know exactly what to expect, and then their minds and brains are getting rattled because of somebody with a 7.5-inch AR-556 with a muzzle brake on it that's just absolutely doing mag dumps. Don't be that guy. However, with all that being said, imagine how much more peaceful of a world it would be if we were like Europe. Imagine that, saying that, and everybody had suppressors on their firearms. Granted, the firearms we get here is much cooler in some cases, but to be argued in a different video. But is it a good idea for home defense? And like I was saying already, if you find yourself in that really unfortunate situation where you're having to discharge something like this at a home intruder, somebody that's looking to do you or your loved ones harm, or steal your things that you've worked really hard for. You don't know what their intentions are at the end of the day, and you just want to make sure that you and your family walk away from whatever the situation is alive. And if you're discharging something like this, which this is my Mark 18 at the end of the day, SBR lower, Daniel Defense lower with the Aero Precision upper receiver. This is the M4 enhanced upper that we do have on the website, and this is chambered in 300 blackout with an 8-inch barrel. You'll also notice that it has the new Flow 762 Ti by Huxworks. This is a configuration that I've been running very happily and quite a bit with, and we'll go into a little bit more of the breakdown and why I think this is an absolute ideal home defense gun here in just a moment. But ultimately, the silencer. If I were to discharge this firearm within close quarters unsuppressed, I'm gonna be not having a great day, especially if I don't have hearing protection in, which in a home defense situation, you're most likely not gonna have the time or even the coherent mind, the presence of mind to think, I need to put on hearing protection, much less I need to turn on my optic or anything like that. Okay, so whenever you hear that infamous bump in the night, you might be thinking, oh, it's the house settling, or it's the dog, or I don't know, maybe one of my kids is awake. Whatever it could possibly be that you're thinking, your mind tries to kind of like reconcile what's happening, because there's no way somebody's breaking in, right? That might not be the first thing that goes to your mind. Or perhaps maybe it is, and you're like, today's the day, so much for these guys, they're getting it. Which is exactly what a prosecutor wants you to think whenever they're trying to say that, well, you went overboard and went beyond the necessary means to stop a threat. which again, we'll talk a little bit about later. But discharging a firearm indoors is already concussive enough, so why not cut that back a little bit with a suppressor? A lot of people will immediately start to think about hearing loss as well. Hey, I want to make sure that if I find myself in a self-defense situation and I discharge my firearm, I'm not going deaf afterwards. That argument, I don't really find all that feasible in my mind, because even if I am walking away with a little bit of hearing damage, I at least have my life, right? So, okay. But I can say a couple of other things. If you do have family members in the house, and I've read a couple of stories now after doing research on this topic, that actually the man, typically in this situation, defending the home, hasn't suffered any type of hearing loss. Adrenaline has cut in so bad, auditory exclusion hit, that it was actually his family members, after the shots were done ringing out, it was his family members that actually suffered hearing loss for three months, had tinnitus, things like that. Or at least that's what the story said. I don't know if that's actually true, things like that, but I could see that being an issue or a situation that you could come across if in that situation of a home intruder and discharging your firearm indoors in a home defense situation. So with that, yeah, think about your loved ones. Think about your loved ones in another sense as well, being able to effectively communicate to your family if you are in a situation where you are living with your family. A lot of people could be single in this aspect and not have to really worry about that. All you need to worry about is just getting out of this bad place alive. And well, having a silencer does help with that, because it allows you to effectively more communicate. Hell, the Marine Corps found that out, and that's why they're wanting to equip every infantryman, every rifleman with a silencer. It just makes the fog of war a little bit more bearable whenever you can communicate to your teammates. Granted, it's not going to completely silence the firearm. You're still going to have, if you're shooting supersonic ammunition, you're still going to have the break of the sound barrier, that crack. You're still going to have the action of the gun. You're still going to have a bunch of other things creating sound that is a natural thing that comes with discharging a firearm for a semi-automatic in this purpose, all right? So with all that being said, I can definitely see where John Lovell's coming from when he's talking about maybe perhaps not wanting to use a silencer in a home defense situation, because if you find yourself, let's say in a more populated area, let's say you're in an apartment building, something like that, you might not have time to dial 911 when somebody's kicked in your door and your master bedroom is only a couple feet away from the main entrance to your living quarters. Well, okay, now all of a sudden it goes straight into defense. And those first rounds that get shot, everybody else is going to know what's going on, or at least you assume they will, right? Some people might think, wow, somebody's throwing one heck of a party, and that's that. A lot of people might be, I don't know, headphones in, scrolling on their phone, not paying attention to the rest of the world, and their own door could be getting kicked in and they wouldn't have any idea because they're completely oblivious to everything. Welcome to modern society. But with all of that, at least being unsuppressed will alert everybody in your vicinity that, hey, again, perhaps alert everybody in your vicinity, hey, something is going down, maybe I should dial 911, which I would appreciate in my neighbor in that situation doing that, because I'm fighting for my life. I don't have time to dial those 3 digits and explain what's happening. Again, these are different scenarios and what ifs, but everybody loves to thrive and think about the what ifs, right? Well, here's one big question, or one big what if for you. What if a prosecutor, if I were to use this firearm, this is, again, 2 NFA items, being a short-barreled rifle and a silencer. If I were to use this firearm with this silencer in a home defense situation, a prosecutor could say that I had every mean and intent to kill. I went over the necessary means to stop the threat, and utilizing a silencer and this whole setup is just absolutely ridiculous. And it being a National Firearms Act regulated items could also be more problematic. Do the research, look up 18 U.S. Code 924 and see that there's some stipulations when it comes to using NFA items and such in a defensive situation. It's kind of scary. Go check it out. That's not going to exactly deter me from using this, however, again, in home defense. Why? Because I want to have the advantage, ultimately, at the end of the day. Now, there is something else, too, that John mentioned that I do also agree with, Yes and no, but it's about having that psychological effect on multiple intruders. Let's say they spread out perhaps, right? Let's say one's going upstairs, one's going downstairs, one's going into one room, whatever. It doesn't matter how many guys you throw in the scenario or which direction they go, but let's just say at some point they separate, but you engage one of them with a loud, thunderous AR or whatever else it might be. Other guy recognizes, oh crap. And usually what we see during this situation, even if it's just a basic pistol, a lot of what like Mr. Guns and Gear posts on Instagram are these home invasions with multiple intruders. And we'll see 6 or 7 shots ring out from the homeowner. And what happens typically, these guys scatter. They run, they were not expecting a threat. Most of these people are cowards anyway. If they can't, if they're breaking into your home looking to steal your things, most likely a coward. All right. And so the moment that they face a threat, let's say a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-reliant, capable threat. Well, they're probably just going to want to tuck tail and run and get the hell out of that bad situation for them now. And therefore having again that psychological effect, communicating, hey, I'm bigger, I'm badder than you, you messed up. Welcome to the hellhole that you just walked yourself into. Now all of a sudden you want to get out, right? Okay, great. I can totally see that. Also, having a suppressor on, and let's say you're in that same situation, you're using either a suppressed pistol or shorty or full size for that matter, whatever it might be. Now all of a sudden you're utilizing that same gun with a silencer on it. Do you think it would have that same psychological effect? I would like to say yes, because having shot indoors a silencer, even without other people around, it's still not exactly like great, depending on what you're shooting, but it's definitely a lot more comfortable than shooting an unsuppressed version of the same firearm, right? Okay, now with all of that being down at the receiving end of that, all of that sound and everything else is traveling downward. It's traveling with the round down range, and it's pretty intimidating, to say the least. Now with that also, maybe perhaps these individuals that decided to go ahead and make your regular life pretty hellacious for a couple of minutes, now they may not be able to exactly identify where that sound is coming from as well. Granted, it's going to be pretty easy to guess if you've just got one single hallway and rounds are coming down range from that way, but there's just something else to take into consideration there. Silencers do a really good job, especially in a combat situation where you're out in the open world, whatever it might be, of not being able to exactly pinpoint where that shot came from. It's very easy, if you've ever heard gunshots before out in the wild, if that's what I'll just call it now, unsuppressed shots are a little bit easier to identify. It came from that direction, specifically right over there. Now all of a sudden you throw a silencer on it, it's more of a splash effect, and that sound just seems to disperse, right? It just kind of goes all over the place, and you can say somewhere in that general direction. That's also an advantage. Indoors, home defense situation, probably not that big of a deal unless you're, at the Biltmore estate or you got a mansion that you're shooting from or in or whatever else it might be. Again, single room, 2-3 bedroom apartment, something like that, it's probably not going to be too hard to identify where these shots are coming from. Again, it really comes down to the presence of mind that you and this intruder are ultimately going to have, or intruders in this case. So really adrenaline is up. You've already got auditory exclusion. You probably got that tunnel vision kicking in as well. So now all of a sudden you've got all these other contributing factors that are going to cause disorientation, that's going to cause just not a cognizant mindset. And so being able to eliminate one of those factors, which is a loud concussive bang happening right outside of your face by throwing on one of these, ultimately a muffler for your gun, is something that I would prefer personally. But granted, if you find yourself in that situation where you have to use something like this in a home defense scenario, prosecutors, whatever else might be, are going to try to find a way to make you look like the bad guy. Are you willing to take that risk? And it's just like, hey, I'd rather have a gun and not need it than to need it and not have one at all. So in this case, is it kind of a, well, tried by 12 over carried by 6 mindset? You guys let me know what you think down in the comment section below. As for me, Yeah, I think my 300 blackout setup like this is gonna stay just as it is, right beside my bed, and not too far from that, probably my Century AP5 with also a Huxworks Cache 9 9mm silencer, and maybe not too far from that, my FNX 45 Tactical with the Gemtech GM45 silencer also, and maybe not too far from that, my Henry 4570, because why the hell not, right? And for those of you that just wanna see it, there you go, right? Because like I said, just, in case they didn't get the picture that I was trying to protect their hearing while shooting at them. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. What is the ideal home defense setup for you? Do you think that silencers are ultimately a good idea on your home defense gun? Let me know. All right. And with that, keep in mind too, like I was talking about before, prosecutors are going to do everything in their power to make it look like you ultimately baited this home intruder to come into your house. So that way you could deliver as much bodily harm as possible, down to the rounds that you're using, down to the attachments that's on your gun. So be careful about what you have out there. For instance, I'm pretty sure a lot of us have heard the story, the actual story, this is true, of a cop that found himself in a really bad situation when he had to use his service pistol in a officer-involved shooting. After eliminating the threat, killing the subject, they did actually find that on his Glock service pistol, the back plate had some derogatory words to it, and ultimately you're dead, right? That, again, prosecutors looked at and said, this guy was out to kill. He wore the badge, wore the gun, and had this bully concept, and he was just out there to kill. And they were able to use something as simple as a backplate against him. So be careful about what you have on your firearm. Again, I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice, anything like that. All I'm saying is think. Like at the beginning of this video, I said, use this brain. Use the brain before you implement your mind, before you implement any other type of weapon, all right? And I think you'll find yourself in a little bit better situation post bad situation. So again, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. My Monday night live streams. So make sure you're tuning in, usually Monday evenings, Eastern time, around 7 o'clock or so, just to talk with you guys, answer some questions, and talk about whatever some of the subjects of some of the previous videos that we had throughout the week. And of course, anything that might be happening in the news, like, well, the current pistol brace regulations and rules. Those aren't laws, by the way, rules that are being implemented. So tune in. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. I'll see you guys again Monday nights around 7 Eastern, give or take, depending on my schedule. And as always, guys, we appreciate you. God bless, and we'll see you next time at Classic Firearms.